And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gents. This is about Casanova from Orlando, Florida, on this awesome international podcast. Good wine and great laughs, the podcast for wine lovers, ladies and gents. Summer movie review and hot topic discussion, ladies and gents. I'm your host, Casanova. If you are new to my YouTube channel, ladies and what I do here every Saturday morning at 10 a.m. I have the wine of the day, ladies and gents. I'm going to open this wine right here. I'm going to taste. I'm going to let you know what I think about this wine, and the picture of this wine is on all my social medias right here. The same name of the podcast, ladies and gents. You're going to see a nice, clear picture of the wine of the day. So if you like what I say, you want to try the wine, the picture available for you to take to your wine store and to see what you think about it. And if you taste any of the wine that I present here, do me a favor, come back to the YouTube channel and make a comment. Let me know what you think about the wine of the day, please. Okay? During the summer months of June and July, what I do, I take a break of podcast hot topics and I do some movie reviews. So any movies that come to movie theaters, on any other Instagram, Amazon Prime, Netflix, and all this good stuff. If there's a new movie that I want to watch it, I will watch it. I will let you know and make a review about it. All right. For the rest of the year, ladies and gents, what I do is hot top discussions. And the hot top discussions are always top because they can affect our lives directly or indirectly. So if you like wine, ladies and gents, if you like some movies and reviews and hot top discussions, this YouTube channel is for you. If you like the work that I do, ladies and gents, I ask only three simple things. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel, share my videos with at least 5 people you know, and click on the like button on every video that you watch from this channel. I appreciate your support. All right, so today is Saturday, May 9th, 2026. And the weather here in Orlando, ladies and gents, it's going to be partly cloudy skies in the morning, but it's going to be hot as Hades. Highs of 94 and lows of 74. And before I start drinking, I want to wish you a happy Mother's Day for all mothers around the world, ladies and gents. And if unfortunately your mother is no longer here, I want you to just keep your memories of the good times that you have with your mother and cherish these moments that I know is going to bring a smile to your heart and to your face. All right, ladies and gents. So let's talk about the wine of the day. First of all right, as you saw the thumbnail, we're going to be talking about Spirit and farewell to Spirit Airlines, ladies and gents. And I was looking for something to start. I found this MIMOSA that is yellow, reminds me of the Spirit of Planes. So it's called PRIMA. You see right here is a wine specialty. MIMOSA is a natural sparkling grape wine with orange juice added. See right here on the label is an appealing orange color with the natural fizz of fine bubbles rising from the pulp of fresh orange juice with an intense aroma. The flavor of fresh squeezed oranges is enriched by naturally sparkling wine. The letters are very small. It's okay. I can barely read. See, having lovely aftertaste that make these the perfect drink for any occasion. Serve cold. Recommendation. Now, the alcohol percentage is only 7%. So I know if it tastes good, you're definitely gonna finish this wine. This MIMOSA Opera Prima, and this is a product of Spain, ladies and gents. A product of Spain. So give me a second right here. Take this little cage out. I gotta be very careful. So Don't want to hit the ceiling. All right, here's the face right there. Ooh la la. So let's see what's the Opera Prima. As you can see right there. Nice and bubblicious. Definitely smell orange juice. You know, it smell. Let's say very fizzy. Taste. I do not taste any alcohol right now, but that's the problem. Sometimes you don't taste alcohol, and that can be a creeper. But because only 7% alcohol, this for me in water is the same. So, but it tastes good, ladies and gents. For the ladies that love MIMOSA, I definitely recommend for you the MIMOSA Opera Prima from Spain. And this bottle, ladies, it cost me less than $10. So I know the struggle is real. Times are really, really hard right now. So if you're in the budget, but you want something to taste that's going to taste good, I recommend to you MIMOSA Opera Prima from Spain. All right? So let's talk about the topic of the day. I already told you what I'm going to talk about. Let's then season 12, episode 18 is the farewell to Spirit Airlines. Ladies and gents, we're going to watch 3 very good videos related to everything. It's going to explain a lot of information that I did not know. And I know a lot of people that work in the aviation industry. And just because I affect the Spirit, but if I just fly Delta, I just fly United, I'm a Platinum. Pay attention on these videos because it can be a domino effect on what's going on. Start with Spirit, and if the shenanigans continuing, a lot of airlines are going to cut costs and going to cut stuff that so they can survive in the industry. So I'd like to give credit first of all to EXPLANED, all JAZEERA English, and MS Now. These are the 3 videos I'm going to play, ladies and gents. So let me play these videos, and I'm keep drinking this delicious mimosa. And at the end of this review, like I always do, I'll give you my 2 cents about what I think. So, all right. So enough talking. It is showtime. Yeah.
It was a pleasure working with you guys, and I wish you the best.
Same here. Thank you very much.
At 3 in the morning on May 2nd, 2026, an entire American airline simply stopped existing. 17,000 workers, jobless. Hundreds of daily flights vanished. Millions of paid tickets suddenly worthless. This is, or should I say, was Spirit Airlines. And after 34 years in the sky, it became the first significant American carrier to halt operations in nearly 25 years. A $500 million government bailout collapsed late Friday night, May 1st. 2 bankruptcies in 18 months. 1 war in the Middle East that nearly doubled the cost of jet fuel.
Spirit Airlines says it is shutting down operations effective immediately after talks with the Trump administration over a federal bailout ended with no deal.
After you watch this entire video, you'll understand exactly how the loudest, cheapest, most controversial airline in America eventually ran out of runway. Let's rewind back to 1964. In a quiet corner of Michigan, a businessman named Ned Homfeld was running something called the Clippert Trucking Company. Trucks, not planes, just a small logistics outfit moving freight around the Midwest. By 1974, the company had renamed itself Ground Air Transfer Incorporated. The pivot was coming. Then in 1983, Homfeld did something bold. He launched Charter One Airlines out of Macomb County, Michigan, with one mission: fly Midwestern gamblers and tourists to entertainment cities like Atlantic City, Las Vegas, and the Bahamas. Cheap, bare bones, no frills. For almost a decade, Charter One operated as a tiny regional charter company. Then, on May 29th, 1992, everything changed. The company purchased its first jets, rebranded as Spirit Airlines, and on June 1st that same year, launched its first scheduled flight from Detroit to Atlantic City. That date matters. 34 years, almost exactly before the airline would die. Through the 90s and early 2000s, Spirit was just another small American carrier. Boring, conventional, fighting for scraps in a market dominated by United, Delta, and American. But in 2007, under CEO Ben Baldanza, Spirit made a decision that would reshape American aviation for the next 20 years. They went ultra low cost. The model was simple, almost insulting in its simplicity. Strip everything out of the ticket. Charge for the seat assignment. Charge for the carry-on. Charge for water. Even printing a boarding pass at the counter would cost you. The headline fare was the lowest in the industry, sometimes shockingly low. The fees made up the difference. By peak years, ancillary revenue was bringing in roughly 40% of total revenue for Spirit. 40%. From extras, Americans had a love-hate relationship with it. The bright yellow planes, the aggressive ads making fun of legacy carriers, the legendary tightness of the seats. Comedians built entire routines around Spirit. But here's the thing, the model worked. For years, Spirit was one of the most profitable airlines in the United States. They proved you could fly people from Fort Lauderdale to Las Vegas for $49 and still make money. Spirit operated more than 200 Airbus jets, served 350 markets, and ran about 830 daily flights. The 7th largest passenger carrier in North America. The biggest ultra-low-cost carrier on the continent. Then everything started to break down, piece by piece. In February 2022, Frontier Airlines made a move. They announced a $2.9 billion deal to merge with Spirit. The combined company would have become the 5th largest airline in America. 2 ultra-low-cost carriers, similar fleets, similar models, similar customer base. On paper, it made perfect sense. Then JetBlue showed up. 2 months later, in April 2022, JetBlue launched a hostile counteroffer. $33 per share in cash. $3.6 billion total. Spirit's board rejected it. Then CEO Ted Christie went on CNBC and said the deal would never get past regulators. He called the suggestion insulting. JetBlue didn't quit. They sweetened the offer. By October 2022, Spirit shareholders had rejected the Frontier deal entirely and approved a $3.8 billion JetBlue acquisition. This was the moment Spirit bet its entire future on getting absorbed by a bigger, healthier airline. It was a catastrophic miscalculation. In March 2023, the United States Department of Justice, joined by 6 states and the District of Columbia, filed an antitrust lawsuit to block the merger. Their argument was simple. JetBlue would gut Spirit's ultra-low-cost model. Removing Spirit from the market would raise fares for tens of millions of price-sensitive Americans. The trial took most of 2023, and on January 16, 2024, federal judge William Young, a Reagan appointee, ruled against the merger. He wrote, and this line is famous now, that to those dedicated customers of Spirit, this one's for you. The deal was dead. JetBlue stock jumped. Spirit stock collapsed 47% in a single day.
Yeah.
The yellow airline was now stranded. No buyer, no exit strategy. And here's where it gets worse. While the JetBlue saga played out, a separate disaster was unfolding inside Spirit's hangars. The Pratt & Whitney geared turbofan engines that powered virtually all of Spirit's modern Airbus. A320neo and A321neo aircraft had a defect. A microscopic flaw in the powdered metal used to manufacture turbine and compressor parts. Starting in July 2023, Pratt & Whitney issued a sweeping recall. Hundreds of engines worldwide had to be pulled off wing for inspection. Each engine could spend up to a year in the shop. Spirit, with 79 of these engines in its fleet, was hit harder than any other American carrier. By mid-2025, 39 of Spirit's Airbus, a 320neos, sat parked, grounded, earning nothing. The airline received about $150 million in compensation from Pratt & Whitney, but it wasn't close to enough. A merger blocked, a fleet grounded, and the cash was running out fast. So what did Spirit do? They tried, in 3 desperate phases, to save themselves. Phase 1. They went premium. In July 2024, after 32 years of being the loudest, cheapest, most aggressively bare-bones airline in America, Spirit reversed course completely. They introduced 4 new fare bundles: Go, Go Savvy, Go Comfy, and Go Big. Suddenly, there were free snacks, alcohol on board, blocked middle seats, priority boarding, and a big front seat that looked an awful lot like domestic first class. The Yellow Rebel was trying to look like Delta. I was skeptical of this from day one, and so were a lot of analysts. The whole brand was built on aggressive cheapness. The whole cost structure was designed for unbundled fares. Asking Spirit to compete on comfort was like asking a Toyota Corolla to win Le Mans. Phase 2, they went bankrupt. On November 18th, 2024, Spirit filed for Chapter 11 protection, the first major American airline to do so since 2011. They listed more than $3.6 billion in debt. They had lost over $2.5 billion since the start of the COVID pandemic. The deal wiped out shareholders entirely. Existing bondholders, including Citadel Advisors, Pacific Investment Management, and UBS, took control of the company in a debt-for-equity swap. $795 million of debt was simply canceled. Spirit emerged from this first bankruptcy in March 2025. CEO Ted Christie collected his $3.8 million retention bonus 6 days before filing, then resigned weeks after the airline came out of bankruptcy. The optics were brutal. A new CEO, Dave Davis, took over in April 2025. Phase 3, they tried to shrink their way to survival. Through 2025, Spirit cut almost 4,000 jobs.
Damn.
They eliminated about 200 routes. They furloughed roughly 1,800 flight attendants. They sold off 23 aircraft to free up over $500 million in cash. They pulled back from cities like Boston, Atlanta, and Los Angeles. But did it work? You already know the answer. In August 2025, Spirit filed for Chapter 11 again. 2 bankruptcies in less than a year. The second filing showed $8.1 billion in debts against $8.6 billion in assets. Razor thin. Then, in early 2026, the United States and Israel went to war with Iran. Jet fuel prices nearly doubled. For an airline whose entire business model depends on aggressive cost discipline, this was an extinction-level event. In just the first 2 months of 2026, Spirit lost $60 million. $60 million in 60 days. The company turned to the Trump administration for a $500 million bailout in exchange for a 90% government equity stake. For about 2 weeks in late April, it looked like a deal might happen. Trump publicly said he was looking at it. Lawyers told the bankruptcy court the talks were very advanced. Then the bondholders said no. Citadel Advisors and Ares Management Corporation, 2 of Spirit's largest creditors, refused to accept the terms of the government rescue. The deal would have left them with significantly less money than the existing restructuring plan. They had leverage. They used it. By Friday, May 1st, 2026, Spirit's cash reserves were down to a matter of days. President Trump told reporters he wanted to save the jobs but could not justify a deal that wasn't, in his words, a good deal. That same Friday, Spirit canceled 52 flights, compared to only 3 on the previous day. The signal was unmistakable. At 3 in the morning, Eastern Time on Saturday, May 2nd, 2026, Spirit Airlines began what it called an orderly wind down. All flights canceled. Customer service shut down.
Tonight, thousands of passengers stranded in the fallout from the collapse of Spirit Airlines. The sudden shutdown triggering a travel nightmare.
About 290 scheduled flights for Saturday, gone. 381 for Sunday, gone. Refunds for credit card purchases will likely come through. Refunds for debit card and loyalty point purchases are far less certain. Let me put this in context. The last major American airline to fully liquidate was Aloha Airlines back in 2008 and ATA Airlines that same year. Transworld Airlines was absorbed by American in 2001, but didn't truly disappear in this way. The collapse of a carrier this size, with this many employees, this many tickets sold, this many cities served, has not happened in the United States in nearly a quarter century. The numbers are sobering. Around 17,000 jobs impacted, according to Spirit's own bankruptcy lawyer, Marshall Hubner. Roughly 2,000 pilots, around 3,000 flight attendants, the rest gate agents, mechanics, customer service representatives, and corporate staff. The headquarters in Dania Beach, Florida, sat largely empty Friday afternoon, with employees walking out carrying boxes and computer monitors. Other airlines move fast.
First, the growing turbulence in air travel. More than 24 hours after Spirit Airlines shut down operations, many passengers still stranded.
American Airlines immediately implemented fare caps on its main cabin tickets for routes where Spirit also flew nonstop. United, JetBlue, and Frontier all announced they would help stranded Spirit passengers and recruit Spirit crew members. Frontier, the company that twice tried to merge with Spirit and was twice rejected, will likely now absorb a meaningful chunk of Spirit's old market share. The merger Frontier wanted in 2022 effectively just happened, except they didn't have to pay for it. But here's the harder number. According to a Business Insider analysis, on the 90 routes Spirit pulled out of between 2024 and 2025, average airfares rose about $19, or roughly 14%. Sarah Nelson, president of the Association of Flight Attendants, estimates Spirit's complete shutdown will cost American passengers around $1 billion annually in higher fares. Less competition, higher prices, every single time. So where does American aviation go from here, is the question you may have. The first wave is already underway. Frontier and Allegiant are now the only true ultra-low-cost carriers left in the United States. Both have their own problems, but both will absorb some of Spirit's leisure traffic. Expect them to grow fast over the next 12 to 18 months. Expect their fares to creep up too, because that's what happens when competition disappears. The second wave is the consolidation question. United Airlines CEO Scott Kirby recently confirmed he approached American Airlines about a merger. The collapse of Spirit, removing roughly 4% of total domestic seat capacity in one weekend, makes a big three becoming a big two more thinkable. The Justice Department under the Trump administration is far more permissive than under Biden. The same regulators who killed JetBlue and Spirit might wave through deals nobody would have entertained 2 years ago. The third wave is the customer wave. For 2 decades, American flyers have paid less in real terms to fly than ever before in history. A huge part of that pressure came from ultra-low-cost competition. Spirit forced legacy carriers to invent basic economy fares. Spirit forced the entire industry to add bag fees, seat fees, and unbundled pricing. Love it or hate it, Spirit changed how every American airline does business. Without that pressure, where do prices go? Up. Where does service go? Up too, possibly, because legacy carriers no longer need to compete with bare bones offerings. The American flying experience may finally start to look more like Europe. Fewer carriers, slightly better seats, noticeably higher fares. The death of Spirit is not just one company failing. It's the end of a 20-year experiment in radically cheap American flying. Whether that experiment was good or bad depends entirely on what you valued. If you wanted the cheapest possible ticket, Spirit served you well. If you wanted comfort and reliability, you cursed its name. Before I sign off, if you enjoyed this video and learned something new today, please hit that like button and subscribe to Explained. It genuinely helps me and my channel grow, and it tells me you want more deep dives like this one when big aviation stories break. The yellow airline is gone. May 2nd, 2026, at 3 in the morning. Ned Homfeld's tiny charter operation, the bright yellow planes, the aggressive ads, the fee that nobody saw coming. All of it, history. American aviation has officially entered a new era. And the question is no longer whether prices will rise. It's by how much. Last but not least, I want to express my sympathy for everyone who is involved with Spirit Airlines. I sincerely wish everybody the best. Thank you for watching this video, and I will see you in the next video.
Joining us, MS Now senior reporter Josh Einiger and president of the Association of Flight Attendants, CWA, Sarah Nelson. Thank you guys both for being here. Josh, last I heard, the Trump administration was going to bail out Spirit. What happened?
Well, they tried to negotiate with the debtors and the creditors and those who actually had their skin in the game, and they just couldn't reach a deal. The offer that was on the table from the White House in the end would have had the White House owning something like 90% or a maximum of 90% of the equity of whatever company emerged from bankruptcy. And this company, it's a lot. And this company was so deeply leveraged that all the players that had skin in the game weren't going to get anything out of it in the end. And so they just didn't reach an agreement. And late Friday night, early Saturday morning, those flights, the last flights in the air landed. And that was that.
What happens to all those planes?
Well, the planes, actually, most of them were not owned by Spirit. The newer ones, the ones with any value, were owned by leasing companies. So they're, right now, actually, some are being flown across the country to the desert, and at some point they'll be sold to other carriers. But one of the issues here, Katie, is that there was nothing to buy. The airline was so deeply leveraged. Most of the planes were leased. Maybe one of the more valuable things they had were slots, which actually have value at airports like LaGuardia Airport. But even that, it was hard to make a case for other airlines to step in at the last minute.
17,000 people lost their jobs. It's a lot of people. A lot of people concentrated in the state of Florida as well, which is meaningful for the midterms.
Absolutely. Meaningful for the midterms. And there's been a big blame game, by the way, on the part of the Trump administration, trying to put the blame on the Biden administration, which blocked a merger between JetBlue and Spirit a couple of years ago. But if you look at Spirit's own filings, and if you look at just the graph, I think we can show of jet fuel prices over the last 2 years, it just skyrocketed, of course, as soon as the war started. And JetBlue's own filings say that that was the final nail in the coffin. And earlier today, Katie, I spoke with a flight attendant who had worked for Spirit for 10 years and is now one of the thousands of people who have to start over from the very beginning. Here's what she had to say.
Even the way that other flight attendants and pilots from other companies have treated us through this whole entire process, it just shows you how special this industry is and how connected. We always say united by wings, but it's really true. So I think that it's going to be something that me and the rest of my family and friends at Spirit are going to definitely be trying to get back into the industry and get our wings back.
Sarah, it's a perfect segue to you. Let's talk about the members of yours who lost their jobs. Is there an easy path for them to get back into the industry?
Well, Colleen, who you just saw talking there, is one of them. And I know so many faces, and they are all facing not just losing their jobs or losing their medical insurance, they're losing their ties to their friends and their family, really. They did something extraordinary there at Spirit together. And right up to the last minute, when that last plane touched down in Dallas-Fort Worth late on Friday night, they were there on the front lines trying to make this happen. There was a plan to emerge from bankruptcy, and that got disrupted with these fuel costs and the war. And that's really what happened here. And it is so difficult to have all of these people who are so tied to the job that they love now be so disoriented by losing it just overnight.
You just heard Josh talk about the political blame game here. We also showed that graph of just how costly jet fuel has gotten. And just for the record, Spirit has not been operating well for a long time, but this certainly the nail in the coffin. What do you think of the blame game, though, the politics of this?
I think that it is a waste of time. I think that people need material help right now. There are people that I talked to someone who is a dual income Spirit flight attendant with another Spirit flight attendant. They've lost their health care, they've lost their paycheck, and they have 3 special needs kids that they're trying to take care of. These are real people who need help right now. And we have asked the administration not just to jump in and save Spirit here, which would have been so good for these 17,000 workers. It would have been good for all Americans, because we show that over the next year, there's going to be an additional $1 billion put on consumers, and many people will just not be able to fly because of this. But right now, what we need is material assistance for these workers who are now on the unemployment line. As you said, many of them in Florida, $275 a week for some of the top earners. How are they supposed to live on that without health insurance? We need those health care plans extended. We need to prioritize paying the last paychecks and all the benefits in the bankruptcy court. We need the administration to step in here with some real material assistance. And frankly, if they wanted to get that deal done to keep Spirit flying, they could have, and they didn't. So that is what we know today. And I don't care about the blame. What I want is focus on the workers. And if we have a lot of people who want to help, if people want to contribute and help to Spirit flight attendants, our disaster relief fund is open at afacwa.org/DRF.
Why do you think the administration could have gotten a deal done? Spirit was already having trouble. There was also a lot of discontent among Americans that the administration shouldn't be getting so heavily involved. And I mean, they've already been criticized for other moves where they're getting involved in private industry. Was it a good idea to do it here, even though I know you represent a lot of people who are really suffering right now?
I want to be really clear, Katie. So they already bailed out Steel and Intel when it wasn't a time of crisis, and that was for their benefit. This would have been about a time of crisis that, frankly, they created, we have a long history of the government stepping in and helping out companies in a time of crisis to bridge through to another day. And that's what could have been done here. $500 million to invest in the American people, not just the 17,000 people who are working there, but all of the millions of people who fly on Spirit. What we've seen is over the last year, 23 markets that Spirit has pulled out of. The total revenue in those markets has stayed the same. The passenger count has gone down by 20%. Fares have gone up by 23%. So what this means is, with Spirit going out of business, is that air travel becomes further and further out of reach for ordinary Americans. As we go into the Memorial Day weekend, a lot of people are just choosing not to travel. They're not going to spend in those hotels. They're not going to spend in the places they were going to travel to because Spirit went out of business. So this is going to have a long time ramifications, and it would have been a really smart investment by the government to invest in the American people. That's what this was about. It wasn't just about propping up a company.
Yeah. All right, Sarah Nelson, good points. Appreciate your time.
This is America. And this is Los Angeles International Airport, where there's now one less option for travelers who want to fly domestically in the United States. Soaring jet fuel costs, the final nail in the coffin for Spirit Airlines, a major player in a vast country that relies heavily on its transportation networks. So is the collapse of Spirit a warning sign to its competitors? And are travelers worldwide about to pay an even bigger cost? To begin today's discussion, here's Cyril Vanier in our Washington studio.
And John Hendren in Los Angeles, thank you. Air travel in the U.S. is a very competitive industry, and it is not rare for airlines to file for bankruptcy. But for a significant American carrier to actually shut down, with the airline totally disappearing overnight, that we have not seen in a quarter of a century. And it just happened to Spirit Airlines, a pioneer of ultra-low-cost travel. The company was struggling financially, and the energy shock triggered by the Iran war was the last straw. Spirit could no longer pay its bills.
Spirit Airlines ceasing operations overnight after bailout talks with the White House broke down.
There is no more runway for Spirit Airlines. It had been struggling with skyrocketing fuel costs and mountains of debt,
leaving flyers scrambling for options.
17,000 workers are now out of a job.
And the airline is placing the blame on those soaring fuel prices amid the war with Iran.
The price of jet fuel has exploded as a result of the Iran war, plus 80% since February. That means costs are way up for airlines, and ultimately air travel becomes more expensive for passengers. Some people are having to rethink their vacation plans just as we head into the summer holiday season and into a major global and travel event, the FIFA World Cup, much of which is hosted by the United States. So how are airlines and travelers going to cope? John Hendren reports from LAX in Los Angeles, and Richard Gaisford is at Reagan National just outside of Washington, D.C.
Now that is one of 28,000 domestic commercial flights that crisscrosses America every day, carrying some 2.7 million people. Because of the size of the country, of course, if you're going on a work trip, holiday, or wanting to see family and friends, air travel is about the only way of doing it for long journeys. We'll take a look at the skies and you'll see hundreds of planes above America at any one point in the day, all burning jet fuel. And that has risen in cost by almost 80% since war broke out in the Middle East at the end of February. Well, that is a massive rise for the airlines to swallow, and aviation fuel is one of the biggest single operating costs that they have to deal with. American Airlines says it will add $4 billion to its costs this year. United says it will have to cut 5% of its schedule later this year if fuel prices don't come down. Southwest Airlines says fuel creates a $1 billion headwind for it, and the fuel price really was the final straw for Spirit Airlines. Its collapse has left passengers stranded right across the country. Well, with more on that, let's go coast to coast now. And my colleague John Hendren in Los Angeles, who's about 5 hours away from me by plane.
Richard, the Iran war's energy aftershocks have hit especially hard here at the airport in Los Angeles, a major airline hub and the premier gateway for international travel from America's West Coast. Airlines have already started raising baggage fees and fares, and that's left many travelers with price shock.
My flight today was more expensive than it would have been a year ago because of the gas and the fuels.
The higher prices come as travelers are gearing up for the busy summer travel season. Surveys show 72% of Americans plan to travel over the summer, many by air. Starting in June, another 180,000 travelers will come to LA alone for the World Cup. Those travelers will face a multi-pronged problem. Rising fuel costs mean all routes are less profitable, so prices go up. Some airlines had been keeping rates low on routes that Spirit flew. Now they don't have to. And airlines have been canceling flights on routes that are less profitable. It all adds up to less competition and higher prices. We talked to a number of LA travelers about how they felt about the rising cost of flying.
It's definitely like an added stress, especially for people in the entertainment industry in LA.
And those prices just keep going up, right?
Yeah, they keep going up.
It's a burden on everybody right now.
Those surging oil prices and spiking airfares are increasingly raising concerns in the aviation industry ahead of the World Cup and just as the U.S. is preparing to celebrate its 250th anniversary. Richard?
Yeah, well, thanks, John. There is no doubt that the airline industry is constantly adapting and changing here in America, with some really big names consigned to the history books.
24 hours a day, 7 days a week, Continental jets are in the air over 5 continents.
Well, flying has certainly changed. We had a big shock with COVID, and this summer there will be real pressure on airlines because of all those rising costs. Passengers are likely to pay the price as travel becomes more expensive, and as the airlines reduce the number of flights to fill up planes and make operations more efficient. It is worth noting that passengers in the US don't have the same consumer protection rights as those flying in Europe, and that might come as something of a shock to visitors here this summer.
One more thing before I bring in our panel. How much does it cost now to fly in the U.S., given that the ultra-low-cost option Spirit Airlines is gone? So let's say Richard wanted to visit John in L.A., just for argument's sake. We compared the cost of a return flight from D.C. to L.A. a month from now. Southwest Airlines, a low-cost carrier, is offering return flights for $237. That is with a 2-hour stopover, however. While a non-stop flight on American Airlines would cost you more than $400. So there are significant differences in price. Although, just a caveat, low-cost carriers often charge extra for baggage and onboard meals. We're joined now by Andrew Applebaum. He's an attorney for Flyers Rights. That's the largest airline passenger advocacy organization in the U.S. And by Edward Russell, an aviation and transport journalist. Edward, let's start with you. Spirit Airlines was a pioneer in the ultra low-cost market. Why did it die?
It died because of the cost shock from the rise in fuel prices following the invasion, the war with Iran in February. But the airline has been struggling for years. They built their costs, their structure on debt over the years, fast growth, and about 2023, 2024, when growth slowed down in the U.S., the problem was that structure stopped being sustainable, and they had to start paying their debt. They tried to merge with JetBlue. That failed. That was blocked by the Biden administration, but the debt problem still remained. And so we saw them enter 2 bankruptcies, and finally costs caught up with them.
Yeah, that's important to point out. They had already filed for bankruptcy. They were making a loss. They were just struggling for survival.
Yes.
And one of our reporters said that was the Iran energy shock. That was the nail in the coffin.
Absolutely. I read the statement by their CFO filed with the court yesterday, and he said fuel was really the reason that pushed them over it. They had a plan that they planned to exit bankruptcy with, but that was filed before fuel went up by double digits, and it just wasn't viable in that case anymore. They just were not bringing enough revenue to cover their costs, especially their debt.
Yeah, they couldn't pay their bills. Andrew Applebaum, are you working with any of the customers, the travelers that were affected by the immediate sudden shutdown of Spirit Airlines?
Yes, we're helping passengers. We have a hotline, and we receive lots of complaints from passengers. And the number one complaint is usually flight delays and misconnections. But now we're hearing about the cancellations. And in the U.S., it's unlike Europe or Canada or Brazil, where there is domestic delay compensation in those countries. In the U.S., there is none. And so when the airline, when Spirit here, cancels your flight, goes out of business, all you're entitled to is a refund. You're not entitled to any type of compensation or duty of care.
So their options are refund, that's it?
Correct. In the U.S., for domestic travel, the only option is a refund. And we're probably going to see that more and more airlines canceling flights due to the high fuel prices.
Yeah. Edward Russell, more broadly, if the ultra-low-cost carrier disappears, if Spirit Airline disappears, does that mean that the cheapest flight options are all gone?
Absolutely. Already Frontier Airlines says they're seeing a 3 to 5 percentage point increase in markets where they competed with Spirit Airlines. That's just from their shutdown over the weekend. And that doesn't take into account the rises that we've seen from fuel prices. There's been at least 5 broad airfare increases in the U.S. since the end of February. And Spirit's exit from the market's only going to continue to push that up.
Andrew, based on the work that you do with passengers, I mean, what's going to be the fallout if the cheapest option is to travel across the country to go see family, if that's off the table?
Even ignoring the increased fuel costs, we're going to see higher ticket prices. Whenever Spirit was present in a market, airfares dropped sometimes as much as 30%. This is called the Spirit effect. It used to be called the Southwest effect. And so whenever Spirit was in the market, the big 4 carriers would drop their prices. And even if Spirit threatened to enter a market, the other airlines would have to drop their prices. So passengers are going to see higher ticket prices because of Spirit's exit and because of fuel.
But Spirit had been around for 30 plus years, right? Some 35 years roughly. So does that mean that for 35 years they've been depressing, or they've been rather keeping airfares low on the routes that they operate?
That is correct. And Spirit and Frontier and Allegiant often operate routes that the big 4 carriers do not operate. So it's a combination of decreasing prices on the major routes and then also being sometimes the only options on some other routes.
Okay. I want to run our viewers by some of the financials that we found, first quarter profit and loss for some of the major aircraft carriers in the U.S. So that soaring cost of jet fuel makes things a lot more expensive for all airlines, not just Spirit Airlines, especially when it comes to their bottom line. So look at the first quarter results for some of the major airlines in the U.S. United Airlines posted a profit of almost $700 million, but more than half of that came from selling and leasing aircraft. Southwest Airlines, $227 million profit. But aside from those two, all the other major operators posted losses. Starting with Delta Airlines, $289 million loss. Frontier, minus $272 million. JetBlue, minus $319 million. And American Airlines, one of the largest in the country, posted a loss of $380 $182 million. Damn. So, Edward, how vulnerable are other airlines?
That's a good question. I think the disappearance of Spirit actually helps a lot of the other airlines because it takes a competitor out of the market. You know, as you said, airfares will go up because of Spirit's exit from the market, as well as fuel. So it really helps other airlines, especially the ones that are struggling, and the ones that we're watching include JetBlue and Frontier. Those are two. They're going to benefit from having a major competitor leave the market for them.
Do you see it that way as well? This is ultimately good for consumers?
This is not going to be good for consumers at all. It might be good for the other ultra low-cost carriers, but we're seeing a lot of increase in luxury travel, which really hurts the ultra low-cost carriers. And oftentimes the big four airlines are making a lot of their revenue off of credit card reward programs, something that the Spirit and Frontier can't really benefit from. So this ultimately will hurt consumers.
What does it say about the business model for the ultra low cost? Now, I was familiar with the low cost, but the ultra low cost is what it is a turbocharged version of that low-cost business model?
I describe it as the Ryanair model. You know, you buy a ticket for what, £5 or something, and then you know you don't get anything with that. It's the same idea. The model is under pressure in the U.S. We saw significant cost convergence between the major airlines, American, United, Delta, and the ultra low-cost carriers during the pandemic, and because of that, they don't have the same competitive advantage that they had before in terms of much lower costs. There's things they can save in other ways, but they still are struggling. And as Andrew noted, I mean, passengers increasingly are preferring more premium travel experiences. We've seen Frontier and Spirit before it died, adding more extra legroom seats, somewhat first-class light products, but it's just not kept up with the demand that American, United, and Delta are really seeing and benefiting from.
What are you expecting to hear on your end? Because you're on the receiving end, right? On the consumer end of this.
Right. We're hearing a lot of complaints about stranded passengers, but what we're likely going to see is airfares on routes that Spirit operated will increase, as well as routes that they weren't on. And so across the board, Spirit was great for competition. It forced prices down. Unfortunately, they had a transparency problem. While Spirit was great for consumers as a whole, some consumers had a horrible experience with their hidden fees and drip pricing. We call those gotcha fees. And there's been bipartisan condemnation of these practices, including the bounty program, where gate agents were incentivized to charge extra for carry-on bags and personal items that were oversized. And so for a lot of travelers love Spirit, but it was a bad experience for other travelers. And so while the big four airlines were capturing their customers with their credit card rewards programs, Spirit unfortunately was nickel and diming their customers.
I wonder what the place of government is in something like this, whether they should be, in your view, saving, not saving, helping, not helping those airlines. A trade group that represents smaller airlines, the Association of Value Airlines is the name, is pushing for a $2.5 billion assistance package from the government, specifically for those airlines. But the U.S. Transportation Secretary, Sean Duffy, says that if other airlines are struggling, as Spirit was, then they should look for private financing first.
Now, you've heard that other airlines have talked about requesting a $2.5 billion bailout. I am in continual contact, and my team is in contact with all the CEOs of the airlines. I would say that at this point, I don't think it's necessary. They do have access to cash. If they want to come to the U.S. government, we would be a lender of last resort. After today, we are going to see a stronger competitive market in our airline industry, and we're going to continue to look at pricing. We're going to continue to look at our energy supply, our jet fuel supply.
Okay, so Edward Russell, I beg your pardon, Sean Duffy there saying that it's going to make the market more competitive, but more importantly, that the private companies, airlines, shouldn't come to the government for money. Do you think, in your view, you've covered this, do you think government should help if you have several airlines that are struggling financially?
I don't think so at all. I think if it's an industry-wide solution, as we saw during COVID with the aid that went to the entire industry, I think that that's a good idea in select cases like the COVID pandemic. I don't think that we should see government support of just one or two airlines. I personally, if there's a package that had the Value Airlines Association's package, that doesn't apply to the major carriers who carry 80% of the traffic in the country. So I really think that any government assistance should be broad-based and cover the entire industry versus selective to a certain segment of the market.
And worth reminding for our international viewers, I know this is a little bit outside of your remit as an attorney, but just your view on this, politically, bailing out companies in general in this country does not always give you broad political consensus.
That is correct. And during the coronavirus pandemic, the government bailed out all of the airlines. And that bailout money had conditions such as a ban on stock buybacks, a cap on executive compensation, and a guarantee of employment. But once the time frame ended on that, you saw the stock buybacks resume, you saw executive compensation go up, and then you saw some layoffs. So I think the government does need to encourage competition, reduce some barriers to entry. You've got slot and gate access is a big issue for the smaller airlines. And so when we're looking at this, I think bailing out would make some sense because it's a industry-wide problem, gas prices. Some are able to weather the storm more than others, but the U.S. economy relies on air travel to function.
Edward Russell, a couple of years ago,
yes.
Spirit Airlines wanted to merge with JetBlue, and they felt that that was the key to their financial and economic survival. And at the time, the Biden administration blocked this. So let me take us back to 2023. Then Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg spoke about the Department of Justice's efforts to block that merger between Spirit and JetBlue.
Wherever the circumstances meet with our responsibilities and our authorities, we're going to act to ensure a more competitive transportation sector. And since the law gives us particular responsibilities and authorities with aviation, we're going to be especially attentive in the aviation sector. And that spirit of responsibility is what is guiding us in our support for the Justice Department's lawsuit against the proposed JetBlue Spirit merger.
Something that confuses me a little bit personally is you have the Secretary of Transportation in 2023 saying we want to block the merger because that's the best thing for competition and for the market. And now you're hearing just now in 2026, the new Secretary of Transportation saying, well, with one airline disappearing, that actually makes the markets more competitive. It seems that just everybody has a different idea of what it means for the airline market to be competitive.
We think the Department of Transportation was correct in blocking the JetBlue Spirit merger. The Spirit Board of Directors admitted that the JetBlue offer would be anti-competitive, and JetBlue itself admitted that it would be raising prices, cutting routes, cutting the number of seats. And so we found that that was a good use of DOJ authority because ultimately JetBlue was going to kill Spirit themselves.
Is there a warning here for the global aviation industry, Edward? I mean, because so many airlines around the world are going to feel the impact of the soaring price of jet fuel, right? We said plus 80% in the U.S. since late February. That is the second expenditure after labor for most airlines, maybe every airline, right? Yeah. First for a lot. Yeah. So are you concerned that there might be more Spirit Airline-style collapses around the world?
I mean, it's absolutely a fear. I mean, whenever you have a cost shock like we're seeing in the airline industry today, there's the risk of collapse. That said, I can't speak to other governments and their policies towards their airlines, but other governments may be more amenable to supporting their national carriers and the national interest. There's few countries that have as competitive of an airline market as the U.S. do, with multiple national airlines. Most countries have one or two airlines, so it becomes the question of supporting one of them becomes a much more, well, this could impact half of our air travel. So I think it's going to be on a country-to-country basis, whether that happens, but there's always the risk, especially when costs skyrocket like this.
I think that's a very good point, actually. There is something specific about the U.S. market, isn't there? That there are so many airlines in play, which is not the case in, everywhere else in the world.
That's right. But the U.S. market is dominated by 4 carriers. They often have 75 to 80% of the traffic. So I think there's a little bit of a difference of geography. The U.S. is a lot bigger. And so there still is a demand for the ultra low-cost carriers. But passengers will have one fewer choice now.
Now, if I beg your pardon, the energy shock is caused by the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, caused by the Iran war, that has not been solved, and we don't see a fix for that around the corner. The Strait of Hormuz continues to be blocked. Energy continues to be blocked from getting to market. If that continues much longer, what impact do you expect to see back in the U.S. market here?
I don't expect many direct impacts in the U.S. We refine most of our jet fuel here based on crude that's pulled out mined here in North America. But where I am watching is especially Europe and Asia, markets that depend on crude that comes from the Gulf. I just wrote today in the Washington Post that there is a real risk in Europe of jet fuel shortages. The European Commission could move as soon as within 3 weeks to start making sure that there is jet fuel to meet demand. What that will hit first are short-haul flights where airlines can find alternatives. Your transatlantic flight's probably going to fly, but it's that flight from, Frankfurt to Prague that might get canceled in favor of a train or a bus or something. So that's where I'm watching.
Are you gearing up perhaps for more airline trouble that could impact consumers in the U.S., especially as we said earlier in the show, this is just before travel season and it's just before the World Cup?
That's right. Summer is a very busy travel season. Even if the fuel crisis was solved overnight, we'd be seeing these high prices for at least 3 to 6 months. Chances are it's going to get a lot worse, the fuel prices. And so in a year's time, it's hard to predict where the airlines will be and what support they might need.
Edward, you were saying that a lot of the jet fuel that comes from here isn't actually the energy that is brought over from the Middle East, but it's still related. Even if the Strait of Hormuz were to reopen tomorrow, all the industry/energy experts I've spoken to over the last 2 months all have one thing in common. They say the energy shock would not end tomorrow if the Strait of Hormuz were to reopen tomorrow.
Absolutely. It takes, I've heard various numbers, 6 to 8 weeks for refined products to get out of the Gulf, get onto a ship, shipped to Europe or Asia, wherever they're going to go. I mean, this summer, we are going to see higher airfares persist, like Andrew noted. I think the risk
because of
that, absolutely, because of that. That's the biggest cost right now that pretty much every airline in the world is facing. The risk is whether if that spigot doesn't turn back on in terms of jet fuel, that we start seeing shortages, more flight cancellations. That will contribute to higher fares on the flights that do go. But I think that's where the real risk is. And like I said, I mean, there could be further airline collapses, but we're going to have to see what happens there.
All right, gentlemen, thank you very much. I want to thank our guests for joining us in the studio today, in our Washington, D.C. studio. That's Andrew Applebaum, attorney for Flyers Rights. That's the largest airline passenger advocacy organization in the United States. And Edward Russell, aviation and transport journalist. Thank you very much to both of you. Now, the collapse of Spirit rippled across American social media as passengers turned up to canceled flights with a bankrupted airline. Politicians also took advantage of the moment to trade punches across the aisle on Capitol Hill. Alex Baird has this roundup.
Well, it all started with an X post. Spirit officially announcing game over immediately. Even customer service no longer available. Thousands of Americans struck by just how fast this all happened, like Spirit cut off the engines mid-flight. The fallout dominating the chatter across American social media. Spirit going on up to the Spirit in the sky. The sheer number of videos like these showing just how wide the impact has been. Not surprising for an airline with around 30 million passengers last year. Some blaming the US president and the war with Iran for bankrupting the airline with surging fuel prices. But the perception on the other side. Don't look at Trump, look back to Biden, the Treasury Secretary, pointing the finger at that decision we've mentioned throughout the show to block the merger with JetBlue, with thousands of jobs now gone and dozens of regional airports losing services. Conservative media personality Glenn Beck saying that progressives like Senator Elizabeth Warren thought they were protecting consumers, but have actually done the opposite.
So let me ask Elizabeth Warren today, who's the winner here? Because it was a big Biden win, right? Who won?
Warren defending her actions under the last government, saying Trump's fuel price spike was the nail in Spirit's coffin, not her attempt to block two airlines becoming one. Republicans desperate to shift the blame while American families suffer.
Alex Baird there, and that's all from us here in our Washington studio. Back to John Hendren in Los Angeles and to Al Jazeera's global headquarters in Doha.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's get into it. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to give credit to EXPLANED, MS Now, and Al Jazeera English, ladies and gentlemen, for these three videos that we watch right here. So, I was making my notes right here about, and first of all, one thing that caught my attention is that not the last CEO, but the previous CEO from Spirit, when he saw the, excuse my language, the shit's about to hit the fan, you know, he just resigned or whatever he did. He just got out of the job, cashed his check, I believe it's $3.8 million, something like that, you know, and bounce it. You know what I'm saying? So, it's always like that, ladies and gentlemen. Big CEOs, big corporations, they always make sure that the shareholders and the CEOs and the fat cats give the money. Meanwhile, the people that grind, that do the work, is the one that suffer. They get less money. They basically lose everything, as in the case of the Spirit Airlines employees. Another thing too that was shown in the MS Now video, and it was also comment on the first, that the Trump administration wanted 90%. In case give help, I want a 90% back. But this 90% back, ladies and gentlemen, is not going to come to the taxpayers. It's going to come to Trump's administration. That means it's going to come to Trump's pocket. That's why the two companies that are holding down on for Spirit to say, no, honey, we're not doing this. It's not about that life. You know? And second of all, that I was watching, because I say you guys know I live in Florida, I was watching some articles and all the other things related to what happened is the domino effect. The Spirit employs 17,000 people are out of job. That's the whole company. That means people that in all different areas, all the stations that they have, all the bases that they have. You know, but in Florida, Fort Lauderdale, that they built a huge headquarters building, I believe 2 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. Something like that. On the first video, you're going to see exactly what the time was. But a lot of people were dead working in Fort Lauderdale area. And beside the employees that work directly to Spirit, also had the side effect of hotels, car rentals, and restaurants in the area that basically relied on Spirit to cost passengers to come down to Fort Lauderdale, you know, to have their business. So it's not only Spirit employees that are feeling the pain right now. Of course, they are the number one, but like I say, the domino effect to go to other business, tourist business, hotel business, car rental business, restaurant business, you know, and whatever entertainment business in Fort Lauderdale that were relying on all these passengers that are using Spirit to come to Fort Lauderdale to survive, to thrive on their business. All right? So, and another thing too, just get ready, ladies and gents, get ready for the higher cost of flying travel. Okay? Because some people hated Spirit. Sometimes now there's plenty of videos on all social medias of people fighting, acting crazy in Spirit. But the problem is not the airline itself. The problem is society, some members of society that do not know how to behave among other people. There's no respect to another human being besides you. There's no respect to the crew members that are working, and they risk their lives. If something happens on that plane, they will risk their life to save your life. Do you understand what I'm saying, ladies and gents? Go back. I have a podcast that I did. It's not on YouTube. It's not available on YouTube, but it's available on Spotify. Go to Spotify and go to the first videos, like especially during the COVID, the 2020 area. I had, I believe, 2 podcasts related to and related what's happening to COVID, and I have 4 flight attendants. They were my guests. They were talking about what's going on with COVID and how the issues they were dealing with people. And you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? So you cannot blame the Spirit Airline because a fight broke loose. No, a hell broke loose on the flight. It's because not the airline, but the people that are there. And this is a problem that we have in society, that we lost completely the common sense and the respect to each other. So you cannot blame the airline. Now, if the airline has the business model, but at the end of the day, that's one thing that helped lower the prices of the main carriers, the Deltas, the American, United, because let's say, for instance, if that flight, I'm going to give an example. If I'm not mistaken, the Spirit, if you have any Spirit Air flight attendant that's watching this video, if I'm wrong, please correct me. But I'm just giving an example. Let's say, for instance, if Spirit has a flight that comes to Chicago, to Fort Lauderdale, or to Orlando, okay? And American, Delta, United have the same flights from Washington, Chicago O'Hare, ORD. Let's use Chicago O'Hare as an example. Spirit to Chicago, no, Spirit in ORD, Chicago O'Hare, American, Delta, and United. So if the Spirit flight was $200, it kept the other 3 big airlines in check. Because if the ticket is $200 one way, you know, they probably put the ticket for $300, $400 maximum. I'm just like the example, just for you to understand what the effect the Spirit Airline has in the industry. So now the Spirit is gone, and it doesn't. We don't have that lower care competition, so they can say forget it. So now my competition is only American, Delta, United. So now I can, if United ticket is $500, I can still put my ticket $500 or $450 because the low fare carrier is gone. So I don't have to compete with the little guy. My thing now is the big guys, you know, that I have to compete with for the price. So like I say, be prepared of the cost of the flying travel is going to be. So love or hater, the Spirit was there to keep those main carrier airline in check. All right? And another thing too, because like I say, everything's a domino effect. The CEO that I watch on social media, the CEO, the JetBlue CEO is already talking about some bankruptcy talking right now. So this cost of the fuel is not a joke. You can see in your daily life. Now the cost of fuel, not just for the traveling, is affect the flying traveling, is affect your food, the cost of groceries, the cost of gas. Now I took a picture that I posted on my Facebook that I want to put gas in my car this week, and whoever put gas in their vehicle on that particular pump that I stopped to get my gas, somebody only put $8 in his vehicle. You know what I'm saying? Thank God that I'm still able to afford to put my $40 in my gas. But that $40 back 4 months ago, it was a full tank in my car. This week, even though I have 1/4 of the tank, the $40 did not give me a full tank of gas. But like I say, I thank God that I still have the money to put the $40. And I'm thinking about and I pray about that person, that whoever that person was, I don't know, God knows. Whoever was that person that put that $8, that basically that's what the person had. You know what I'm saying? And then on my Facebook, when I post that picture, somebody make a post. They say, "Oh, you want to know the struggling?" That person that make a comment now post a picture of somebody that was in the pump that put $1.50 in his tank. So, for those that think everything's fine, everything's beautiful, let's make America great again. That's nothing great in this country right now, as far as the cost of living in the United States. And so like I say, you're going to see the final video right there. That was Al Jazeera English. They blame Biden and Trump. Trump's always going to blame everybody. That's nothing ever his fault. It's always Biden. And the reality is, ladies and gents, if you are not bamboozled and affected by the spell of the MAGA cult, you will know that everything that's going on right now is what Trump is doing, is the Trump administration that is shitty, and they really, really don't care about the average people. It's all about the rich people, the donors, and the power and money. Now, you and I, the average Joe, are getting the D every day. You know what I'm saying? So it's ridiculous. It is ridiculous. So, once again, I want to finish this video saying to all the people that work for Spirit Airlines, ladies and gents, I understand that we're going through some rough time right now, and I'm telling you honestly and sincerely that you are on my prayers. Every which one person that works for Spirit Airlines Department, I pray for you guys, and I hope. Now I know the times are hard right now, and I pray to God the better days will come. United Airlines are hiring the Spirit people. I believe I saw another post of the Frontier Airlines is also hiring, crew members that used to work for Spirit, for Spirit, let's say. So there's some offers over there. Don't be discouraged. I know the bills are coming. Bills never stop, but take a breath. Please don't do anything stupid that's going to harm yourself. And keep your head up, and better once one door is closed, God, now if you pray and ask Him for His help and His assistance, a bigger door will open for you. All right, so hang in there, my brother, my sister, because better days will come. Now the sorrow can last all night, but joy will come in the morning. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so I appreciate you for liking this video right here. Once again, go ahead and subscribe to Explain, Al Jazeera English and MS Now. If you like this video, please click on the like button, subscribe, share this video for everybody that will know, and I appreciate your support. And salute. Please be kind, be blessed, and be safe. Salute. And I'll see you next Saturday. I told them I'm going to drink all the bottle because 7% alcohol and water, for me, it is the same. Holla!